You're sitting in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, probably waiting for someone to argue over a parking ticket, when suddenly, boom, in walks Diana Crawford, and you can feel the energy shift. It's like watching someone waltz into a dentist's office, wearing a ball gown and sunglasses. She's got that "do you know who I am?" air about her, except she doesn't have to say it, because everyone does know. She's the wife of Rhode Island State Senator Michael Crawford. And she's not just here over a fender bender or some expired registration. No, Diana's facing charges at a holy trinity of bad decisions. DUI, hit and run, and name-dropping her husband's political title like it's a VIP backstage pass. But let's rewind this movie, because Diana's entrance into court is just a third act of a disaster she directed herself. It all started on a Friday night, late, loud, and soaked in Cabernet. Diana was seen leaving a private fundraising event for an arts nonprofit she's on the board of, and according to witnesses, she was celebrating a little too hard. Cut to her in her BMW, with a blood alcohol level of 0.14, almost double the legal limit, swerving through a sleepy residential neighborhood. And then she crashes into a parked sedan. Not just any car, though. It belongs to Robert Martinez, a 76-year-old Vietnam veteran. He and his wife depend on that car to get to the doctor, pick up prescriptions, get groceries, the basics. Diana hits it, gets out, looks at the damage, then casually hops back in her car and drives off like she's late for brunch. Here's where it gets even worse. There's security footage. Oh, yeah, it catches everything. The impact, her stumbling around the car, the hesitation, and then that little shrug before she bails. By the next morning, the police are at her door, and when they confront her, according to body cam audio, she's not concerned. She's annoyed. She keeps bringing up her husband. This is a misunderstanding. My husband's a senator. Over and over, like his title is going to magically erase her BAC. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Now, fast forward to the courtroom. Judge Caprio reads the police report out loud, and the room is dead silent, except for the occasional cough and probably someone trying really hard not to laugh. And that's when Diana pulls the boldest, wildest, most entitled move we've ever seen in this courtroom. She pulls out her phone, in court, while the judge is speaking, and calmly says, "Your Honor, I think we should call my husband." I mean, the audacity. But Caprio, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't warn her. He doesn't lecture. He simply says, "Let's put him on speaker." And just like that, the courtroom transforms. It's no longer just a traffic hearing. It's theater. Everyone leans forward. The air goes electric. You can practically hear the collective, "Oh no, she didn't." Diana dials. The phone rings. And then Senator Michael Crawford picks up. "Hello," he says. Judge Caprio introduces himself, explains the situation, lays out the facts, the DUI, the hit and run, the attempt to flee, the use of his name, and then he asks the senator one simple, devastating question. Do you believe your wife should be treated differently in this courtroom because of your position? There's a pause. And then Senator Crawford says the one thing Diana never expected. "No, Your Honor, my wife should be held accountable just like anyone else. No exceptions." You could hear a pin drop. Diana's face? Frozen. If she had a reset button, she would have slammed it. Instead, she's just standing there, stunned, as the judge thanks her husband and ends the call. The silence that follows is a sound of her entire strategy crumbling in real time. Now, to Judge Caprio's credit, he doesn't humiliate her. He doesn't grandstand. But he does make it clear, no one is above the law. Not senators. Not their spouses. Not anyone who thinks political power should grant immunity from consequence. And the sentence? Oh, he gets creative. Yes, there are fines. Yes, there's restitution. Diana has to pay for the full repairs to Mr. Martinez's car, along with court fees. But it doesn't stop there. She's sentenced to 100 hours of community service, specifically with organizations that serve elderly veterans. On top of that, she must complete alcohol education classes and publicly acknowledge her wrongdoing. Not through some PR filter statement, but in person, directly to Mr. Martinez. The message is loud and clear. This isn't just about punishment. It's about accountability. Real accountability. And here's the wild part. It actually works. At first, Diana shows up to her community service in oversized sunglasses, keeping her head down, doing the bare minimum. But slowly, something shifts. She starts showing up on time. She starts asking questions. She starts listening. One day, she's paired with a group of veterans organizing rides for medical appointments. Exactly the kind of access she almost stripped from Mr. Martinez when she damaged his only transportation. And then comes a moment that nobody expected. She sits down across from Mr. Martinez. No cameras, no reporters, just the two of them. And she apologizes. Not in some rehearsed pageant-ready way, but in a shaky, almost whispery tone. She says, "I didn't just hit your car. I dismissed your life. And I'm sorry." He forgives her. Not easily, but honestly. Because Mr. Martinez? He's lived long enough to know when someone's trying and when someone's pretending. And Diana? For the first time in her life, maybe she's trying. Word starts to get out. Quietly at first. Volunteers talk about how she stays late. How she brought food for a veteran's family one weekend. How she didn't stop her service after the hours were completed. She even turned down an invitation to speak on a morning news show about learning from your mistakes. Why? Because, she said, "It's not about my story anymore. It's about making things right." Now, let's not get too romantic here. Diana Crawford made serious mistakes. She drove drunk. She fled the scene. She tried to use her husband's political clout as a shield. That's not just bad, it's dangerous. And for a while, she acted like the rules didn't apply to her. But here's the thing, the moment she got called out, really called out, something cracked. And instead of rushing to tape it back up with more excuses, she let the brakes show. She owned it. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. Because we live in a world where people in power rarely admit fault. They spin, they deflect, they rebrand. But Diana, she took her punishment, faced her consequences, and started walking the long, hard road to redemption. And the courtroom that day, it gave us a moment no one will forget. A judge who didn't flinch, a senator who didn't protect, and a woman who, after trying to game the system, finally learned what justice really looks like. So, if you ever think the law doesn't touch the powerful, remember this story. Remember the call. Remember the speakerphone. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing someone can say isn't, "Let me call my husband." It's, "I messed up, and I'm ready to make it right." If you're still here, let me know in the comments. Was Judge Caprio too harsh? Too soft? Or did he deliver the perfect balance of justice and dignity? And would you forgive Diana if you were in Mr. Martinez's shoes? Make sure you subscribe for more unbelievable courtroom showdowns, public meltdowns, and those deliciously poetic moments when privilege finally meets its match. Because in a world full of name-dropping disasters, accountability never goes out of style. All right, let's keep the drama rolling. Because just when you think Diana Crawford's scandal has played out like a one-season reality show, wrapped up, resolved, and quietly fading into the background, it finds a second wind. Because here's the thing about public screw-ups in the age of viral everything. The internet never forgets, and neither does the court of public opinion. So yes, Diana completed her sentence. She paid the fines. She did a community service. She even apologized without reading off a lawyer-approved note card. But redemption in real life isn't a one-and-done storyline. It's not a neat little montage with soft piano music. It's messy. It's ongoing. And sometimes it throws an unexpected plot twist that make you wonder if this was ever about one bad night or something much deeper. Let's talk post-scandal Diana, the version of her that emerged after courtroom mic drop. Because while her legal obligations ended, her reputation rehab was only just beginning. For a while, she tried staying out of sight. No more fundraising galas, no networking brunches, not even a staged Whole Foods sighting. It was almost eerie. People whispered, "She's laying low. She's rebranding. She's moving to Connecticut." But Diana wasn't gone. She was studying the room. And when she did reappear, she wasn't a glossy senator's wife with a designer handbag and a vague title like community liaison. She came back smaller. Not in stature, but in presentation. Less glam, more grounded. She started attending veterans events, not as a guest of honor, but as a volunteer. No speeches, no interviews, just her and a clipboard. But that's not the end of it, because even though she was working on herself, the world around her wasn't exactly welcoming her back with open arms. Social circles that once buzzed with her name suddenly turned icy. Former brunch buddies kept their distance. Charity board members gave polite nods but passed over her name for anything that required a public face. It turns out people love a redemption arc until it gets too real, until it challenges their own comfort, until it reminds them that maybe, just maybe, they've used their own privilege in shady ways too. And what about Senator Crawford? Well, his political standing took an unexpected hit. Not because of how he handled the courtroom moment, but because of how uncomfortable it made other politicians feel. His refusal to interfere made him look principled to the public, sure, but in political backrooms, where favors are currency, that kind of integrity, it's not always rewarded. There were whispers that donors quietly pulled support, that fellow lawmakers saw him as too moral, which in politics is just code for not someone I can rely on to bend the rules. The irony is brutal. A man who did the right thing for the right reasons ends up penalized in a system built on quiet deals. And yet, the senator stood firm. No regrets. When asked, rarely, because most people didn't want to bring it up, he always said the same thing. What kind of leader would I be if I couldn't uphold the law in my own home? Phew. Say what you want about politicians, but that one, that's a spine made of steel. Meanwhile, Diana found herself stuck in the weirdest limbo imaginable. Not a villain anymore, but not exactly embraced either. The public had largely moved on. There were newer scandals, flashier headlines, but among the elite circles she used to glide through, there was a new tension, a kind of discomfort that followed her into every room. Like people weren't sure they were supposed to scold her or applaud her for evolving. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of clawing her way back to the top, Diana chose a different path entirely. She leaned into the discomfort. She started mentoring young women, especially those who had made mistakes. DUIs, shoplifting, reckless choices that derailed their lives. Not as a moral authority, but as someone who had been there, who had screwed up, crashed hard, and somehow found a second chance. She never gave interviews about it, never branded it, never started a nonprofit named after herself. She just showed up. One day a young woman, maybe 22, came up to her after a group session and said, "You're that senator's wife, right? The one who messed up real bad." Diana nodded, and the girl said, "Cool, I messed up real bad too. But you're still standing, so maybe I can too." That moment, that was bigger than any apology, any fine, any court sentence. That was impact. And here's the wildest twist of all. That courtroom call, the one Diana made, thinking it would save her, it became the moment that liberated her. Because for the first time in her adult life, she stopped hiding behind her last name. She stopped defining herself by who she was married to, how many committees she chaired, or how many RSVPs she got to exclusive fundraisers. That phone call didn't just expose her entitlement. It burned it down. And what rose from the ashes wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Look, we're not here to paint Diana Crawford as some kind of saint. Let's not pretend she deserves a halo and a Nobel Peace Prize for eventually doing the right thing. She got herself into that mess, and her privilege gave her more cushion than most people ever get. But it is worth recognizing that she took the hit. She didn't hide behind a PR team or double down with denial. She didn't post a Notes app apology with "please respect our privacy" during this difficult time. She didn't cry on a daytime talk show couch. She answered for what she did. She faced the public shame. And instead of trying to make people forget it happened, she started trying to make the next person not feel so alone when they mess up too. And that's rare. We love to cheer for dramatic takedowns. We live for the mess, the meltdowns, the epic public failures. But what we rarely get to see is what happens when someone actually tries to fix the damage without demanding applause for it. Diana's story isn't perfect, but it's real. From a reckless night behind the wheel to a courtroom phone call that blew up in her face to a hard-earned shift in identity that nobody saw coming. It's a full arc, a redemption story, yes, but not the clean, polished kind. The messy, uncomfortable, human kind. So maybe the next time someone gets caught trying to dodge accountability with a name drop and a designer bag, they'll remember what happened when Diana Crawford tried it and what she had to go through to earn her way back from it. And just maybe they'll think twice before reaching for the phone. Let us know what you think. Was Diana's transformation genuine? Was the judge's sentence fair? Should Senator Crawford have protected his wife? Or did he do the only thing a decent leader could do? Hit that subscribe button if you live for public drama, poetic justice, and real-life plot twists that feel like prestige TV. And drop a comment below with your verdict. Because if we've learned anything from this story, it's that accountability doesn't care who you married. And if you're out there thinking you can sip and spin your way out of a hit and run, be warned. The courtroom might just have other plans. And if you're still with me, good. Because there's one more piece of this story we have to talk about. It's the part no one ever posts about. The weird limbo that follows a public scandal. Not the fall, not the rise, but the in-between. The part where people don't know whether to forgive you or forget you. And you don't know whether to prove yourself or disappear. Diana Crawford lived in that limbo for months. She'd go out to pick up coffee and feel the stares. Not angry, not hostile, just curious. That quiet, polite judgment where people don't say anything, but they definitely recognize you. Moms at the PDA meetings whispering. Local business owners giving her tight smiles. The kind of silence that says, we know what you did and we're watching. And you know what? She didn't run from it. That, weirdly, became her redemption. Not the community service. Not the apology. Not even the forgiveness. It was that she stayed visible. She showed her face. Not to save her reputation, but because she knew the only way to really own a mistake is to stop hiding from it. Even when it was awkward. Even when it would have been easier to vanish into some beach house in Narragansett and pretend it never happened. There was one moment, quiet but telling, that really showed how far she'd come. It wasn't televised. It wasn't recorded. It wasn't even supposed to be public. But someone who worked at the community center shared it later. Apparently, there was this young guy, early 20s, who got caught shoplifting and was doing court-ordered community service. Total attitude. Eye rolls. Slouching, not taken seriously. And Diana? She didn't scold him. She didn't lecture. She sat down next to him and said, "You think I didn't try to lie my way out of my mess too?" And just like that, he listened. Because sometimes it takes someone who's crashed harder than you to make you think twice. Sometimes it takes someone who's been on speakerphone in front of a judge, with a senator on the other end, to show you that rock bottom isn't the end. It's just a very loud, very public wake-up call. So, where's Diana Crawford now? She's not running for office. She's not writing a memoir. She's not launching a second chance foundation with an inspirational tagline. She's just living. Messily. Imperfectly. Honestly. And that might be the most surprising twist of all. Because in a world obsessed with image, curated redemption, and scandal cleanup PR, Diana Crawford decided to just be a person again. No spotlight. No excuses. No phone calls. Just accountability. A little humility and a long road forward. And if that's not a courtroom mic drop, I don't know what is.